Hello, everyone. A big welcome to the very first, I would like to call this episode of Where You Left Off. So my name is Tali de Orellana. I'm a curator based in London and in Philadelphia. And I am here right now with David Ayala Alfonso, curator based in Mexico, and incredible artist María Naidich and Rachel de Cuba. So let me introduce the project for you. We are very excited. This is the first time that we are recording an encounter to share with you. Where You Left Off is a exchange project in which David and I have introduced artists from Mexico on the one hand and from the TSA network on the other hand. Just a reminder that the TSA network is an artist circle that is based in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles, in Grenville, in New York, and in Chicago. So let me tell you, a lot of time zones to deal with. So we are basically introducing artists because we think they're amazing. You will think that too. And we are inviting them to have these conversations, which will eventually lead in the development of artworks that will be exhibited in Philadelphia. So this is not the only conversation that is going to happen. We are working with 20 artists. So stay tuned because there will be more of these events for you to catch up on. Okay, so I'm going to start by introducing Rachel. Rachel de Cuba, who is here with us, and she is from the TSA network. So she's an interdisciplinary artist raised in Sebastian, Florida. She received her BFA in studio art at Flagler College in 2013 and her MFA in digital art at Indiana University. She has received recognition for her thesis work with grant awards from Indiana University, and in 2019, she was invited to create new media artwork for the New Orleans Film Festival with support from the Andy Warhol Foundation. So when she's not busy receiving awards, Rachel has also shown nationwide and was recently selected to exhibit in 701 Center for Contemporary Arts 2021 South Carolina Biennial in Columbia, South Carolina. Her work has also been selected for publication in New American Painting Southern 2022 edition, and yeah, she was a essential member in the Tiger Stripes Asteroids in Grenville, as well as Provost Pathways Fellow in Art at Clemson University. Rachel, I think I've said enough, so I will leave, the ground for you to tell us about your practice.
Hi, yeah, thanks. So I'm just gonna jump in here.
I think there you go.
Sorry if there's lag. So I am in my home studio, but I thought I would show you some finished work and then show some of the materials that I use within the work. So recently, in the last couple of years, I've actually been moving between producing imagery that I can print onto fabric. Prior to that, I was doing a lot more moving images, digital-based works, mostly video work. But as things have shifted, especially with COVID and family life, it became a lot easier for me to work physically. So I started to really lean into a practice I did in undergrad, which was quilting, and in some cases painting, while still introducing some multimedia. So I've got like the Edge of Knowing, which I produced this patterned silk and had it printed, and that became a curtain-like facade that went over top of a video piece. And then I've got works like Planta Demon, which starts to combine all of it together. And that's really where I've been sitting. it's been hard. I've been forcing myself to be more improvisational. I'm very type A, especially outside of the studio. So working more fluidly, I would say, is what's been kind of like what I do to challenge myself in the studio. So to just show you some like, I was thinking about this velvet I got printed after I met Maria. We were having like a conversation about photographs, and we've been exchanging some work that we're doing in the studios, and some of her photos look like algae almost, and I've been like really into that. So this is like velvet with archival. This is like an archival screenshot, I guess you would call it. So I'll like find archives online, and I'll go through like old videos, and I'll try to find snippets of things that are really interesting to me. So this is like a shot of the ocean off of the east coast of Florida. This one you can't really tell, but it's got like a fish in it. It was someone who was like fishing large seawater or saltwater based fish, so like swordfish and sailfish, I believe it was. And I basically manipulate a lot of these in order to start to get something like interesting out of them. Another series that I've been working on is actually driving around. This is a snow cone sign from like a roadside. And I'm really interested in like how buildings reflect culture, but also the loss of culture, and how buildings can take the place of like the human form. So you'll notice like in a lot of my work, I'll have suggestions of things like voices or conversations. I'll have like moments where someone could be sitting in the situation or could be in the area, but I tend to leave figures out of my work very purposefully. I actually in undergrad was like very obsessed with the figure. I did a lot of figure painting, but now I've like moved closer towards structures, because I think that the architecture really speaks to both that like longing of being with someone and the absence of someone, but the idea that it could hold people. And so especially thinking about that with migration, thinking about that with borders, with the absence of like loved ones, the absence of community, but then also that silver lining or hope that it could be filled with community at some point, is really interesting to me. And I think that's something that Maria and I talked about quite a bit when we first met, is like, what exactly are we like looking towards when we use certain materials? Why do we use them? And like, how do we want people to view them? Yeah. And this is like my very messy home studio, with like all, I have just like really random old fibers and things like that, that I either find or get handed down or things like that. And I'll just like hoard old remnants of things, and then they'll eventually find their way into works. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Well, David, I leave it up to you now.
Thank you, Tali. Well, my name is David Ayala Alfonso. As Tali mentioned, I'm based in Mexico City. I have a curatorial practice that it's kind of like mixed in between an artistic practice and a research practice. And I'm co-curating this project with Tali. This being the first installment, it really pleases me to introduce Maria, an artist who I have worked with, and I'm going to read from her own words. Maria is a visual artist. Her artistic work combines research and diverse production practices, most of the time resulting into multimedia installations involving image, sculpture, found objects, light, and sound. Her work addresses topics related to nostalgia for a place, archaeology, and nature, with a specific interest in the narratives, objects, and colonial structures, implying in the construction of an anthropocentric imaginary about nature and therefore its domestication. Naidich works with phenomena on the edge of the natural and the artificial, questioning the borders around them through fabulative practices created from the historical, the personal, and the magical. So thank you for being here, Maria, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David, for this introduction. I will share with you guys my screen. Yeah, is it working there for you? Okay, so yeah, as David just said, I work a lot with subjects related to nature and archaeology, and I would like to share with you like my two latest projects that I've been working for these past 2 years already. That's because I work a lot with like long-term projects, like researching a lot through like theory, but as well like through materials. This one, it's a project like, well, actually a research called Water Archaeologies. And well, here's a mix of images, like mixing final works and also just archive images that I've been collecting like through the time on internet or books. And this project, it's about like the symbolic meanings of water, like both in ancient cultures and also in non-Western cultures. And I was really inspired by these text by Ivan Illich, H2O and the Waters of Forgetfulness, and how he's talking about like this transition of the symbolic meanings of water into H2O, like almost a product in these like industrialized societies. So yeah, for example, this one over here, it's like a glass sculpture. I've been like working quite a lot with glass this last year. And then, yeah, it's just a mold that I made with like a water pipe tube and melted with glass. This one, it's also like, I'm also very interested in like this aesthetic of water, like how we yeah, have a certain image of water in our heads, and these colors, which are actually not so much how real water is, but I'm really fascinated by these yeah, this like collective imaginary about water as well. These are some blueprints. For example, this is like a large scale piece with glass. And these are like separate pieces that actually like belong to the same research line. So that's why I just place them together over here with these kind of funny images that I like to collect. And this one, I don't have it on my website, but I'm just gonna like, since I'm sitting at my studio, I would like to also like expand a little bit more than the website. And while I was talking with Rachel, I also like, we found like these that, yeah, encounters in our practice and also differences, of course. And then I realized I've been also filtering some like personal archive images or personal images into my archive, like family pictures, like such as this one over here, like my mom swimming, which is quite a nice image because I also look a lot like her in this photo. So yeah, so this is the water archaeologies. And then these Piedras Blandas, it's like one, yeah, my latest project, and it's a sculptorical installation, and it is about like a fictitious place called Piedras Blandas, where all the beings that live there are just water and stones. So then, yeah, this is some images of the last presentation that I had with this project. And I worked a lot as well with the environment and the light, and yeah. And for this project, I made some pieces like with glass, ceramics, and just like an assemblage of objects that I've been collecting, as well as like these found objects that I just made like these kind of little landscapes. And next to that, I also made like a register of each being or each piece or object from the exhibition, like in this kind of archaeological image, like just with a dark background, that it's part of, I have like several of these images, and right here, I have them like printed because these are part of a file where I was working on renaming or just making new new names for these objects that are beings in this like fictitious installation. And that file, it's currently like available over here. And I also work lately a lot with text. So this is in Spanish, but I like a lot to write about what I'm doing, but like from this perspective that I'm part of this fictitious or fabulative narrative. So this is a text that is part of the file. And so this one, it's like 45 pages. So each page has like one image and a name of these elements. And so I guess these are the two main projects that I'm developing. And what I find really interesting of my last conversation with Rachel is that we both work with images. I thought at the beginning in a really different way, because most of the time the archive images that I use are not part of the final work. And in Rachel's work, she's really using these images. But out of a sudden, I realized that I actually do use a lot these images in the final work. Like, for example, this file I made, it's actually a work. And right now, maybe I can share these materials, because as well as I collect images, I also collect materials. And I just place them in my studio for like quite a while. And it start like the materials start revealing things to me. So for example, I have like this collection of glass sheets, which I totally love. Like these like the what I use to make my sculptures, but then out of a sudden these sheets, without transforming them, are so beautiful. And you can really, I don't know if you can see it with the screen, or maybe I'm gonna stop sharing screen. So I have this bunch of glasses over here, which are really going from blue to green. And this is really funny because I realized for the last 6 years, I've been working with blue and green, and then there's a really interesting intersection between these two colors, with which actually the Mayas had a specific word for that color, which is yaks. So it's in between green and blue, and it changes. And these images we're sharing, Rachel and I, well, I'm just sharing these kind of images with her. So pretty abstract, and also in like just photos that I make with my phone. And out of a sudden, I start like just digging into my iPhone and editing a little bit these images and seeing them together with these materials. And I don't know where it's going, but this is where I am at the moment, from our last conversation with Rachel. Like, it was really inspiring to just hear the way she works. And so that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. It was wonderful to hear you both present your work. And I think, just to start off kind of the conversation about the exchange that already began between you two, I would be very curious to know the kind of like your take on or the answer to the question that kind of Rachel threw at the beginning. She said, Rachel, you said that when you were beginning your conversation with Maria, you wonder, what do you look for when you use certain materials, and what do you want people to see? And I would love to know how that conversation went and what were your, like preliminary answers to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I noticed between how we talked about material is like how much reappears, and also how much like sits in our studio, maybe is like the best way to put it. Like, so that it may not have a very clear reasoning at first, if that's like a good way to put it. Like we collect something because it has like something that makes us think of it as material, but it could sit in our studio for quite a while before it becomes a part of something. Or does it even become a part of something? Or is it simply just like in our studio, like the way that she has pictures on the wall, like I have like random like recipe cards on my desktop. And it's like, I don't know if I'll do anything with those, but like, I really love that recipe card that my grandmother and great grandmother like made for a cake that really doesn't look like it's very healthy and stuff. But I think that sentiment of like collecting, but not knowing is in our studio practices. And I think that's like something that we both saw, maybe, or at least I saw.
Thank you. How about you, Maria? How do you feel?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Rachel shared. I mean, it's really how it works for me. Like as I said before, I have like this bunch of images and objects and materials just laying there until one day something happens with it. And it's funny because, for example, with these images and these glass sheets I just showed you, like they've been here for a while. And after my conversation with Rachel and like looking at her work, I was really, and also like lately I've been like seeing some photographic work from friends, and I just got really inspired about these really abstract images. And then I thought, oh, maybe it's a good moment to start just thinking about these things like more actively. Yeah. And also something that I find really, really exciting is that, or maybe I'm going too fast. No, yeah, that's it.
You're not going fast at all, trust me. And I think, in all of this reflection between the found material, there is something that I find extremely interesting, is that both of you work with the found material. And as you said very eloquently, Rachel, you use the found material directly, as in it's very straightforward, as in the spectator can recognize the found material in a very straightforward way in your work, while Maria, for you, things are not that visibly straightforward, although it's already there. My point being, both of you work for the found material, but Maria, you have been given the found material right now, as in Rachel sent you those images. So in a way, Rachel is, I have the feeling that it seems to me that Rachel is like kind of, how to say, she's going through the process with you, as in using you as external eyes. It's very hard for a person to think, what do I think of something, right? Because it's too internal. However, if you externalize that and see how someone else reacts, then you have an external reaction that allows you to make sense of your own. So that is extremely interesting on the one hand. On the other hand, I have a direct question. Both of you work with the found material, but right now, Maria, you have a material that has been chosen for you. So what do you feel about that? Because Rachel gave you those images, and you said yourself that you're working on them, you're not really sure where that's gonna go. But those are not images that you have found in the classic term. They were given to you. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, like at the moment, like what we decided to do is to like, as you said, Dali, like share just images, but also in a very organic way, like maybe just things that we find interesting or like quite random in a way, which it's quite funny because I also think I use my phone for like making pictures in a bit of a random way, but then when I open the library, it all makes sense. It's like just making sense. And this is how we are, like our first step was that, and we share only one image with each other. So this green image I show you, oh no, it wasn't that one, but another similar image was the one I shared with Rachel, and she shared with me like short video of an animation of her work. So we're very at the very beginning of the exchange of images. But what I can say is that when we had our last conversation, she showed me quite some photo images, like family pictures, like old family pictures, like from when her family from Aruba went to visit to Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And that was very inspired to me because at that moment I was setting up my altar for Day of the Dead, and I got really much into this picture, like of my great grandmother who's just like enjoying herself. Like it's like so beautiful, this image. Oh. And then I just moved it from my room to my studio because it's, yeah, I don't know, like this is what I find interesting, like how I'm filtering these personal images into my work as well. With Rachel works a lot with these very super personal images and family. And so at the moment, we don't have maybe enough material from each other to start just working or producing, but the exchange of even stories and like family stories, it's already like doing so much in what I'm thinking lately, and yeah, what I'm imagining and just thinking basically. Yeah.
That's so great. Not to say that she sent you an image of a character, I mean a person, knowing that, as you mentioned at the beginning, you know that Rachel leaves the figures out of her work. So it's interesting. I just find very interesting, you know, that she said that and then she sends you the sorry, the persona, the figure. The figure that, of course, carries in itself a whole history because it's a real person. So, and Rachel, what do you make out of that?
I mean, I think when we talked, we also talked about like how much we edit or like process things before they make it into a work. So, you know, like I sit on a lot of even maybe less like physical material, but I do a lot of archiving and research. And then I do a lot of like digitizing. So I'll digitize like family albums and things. But most of the time I don't use that material because it is like very personal and typically has a lot of my family in it. And so typically I digitize it and just share it back with my family who's like given me the materials. And then once in a while, I'll use parts of it. Like when I was showing Planta de Man, that work has like an image of my grandparents' kanuku. So they're like house in the hills. And there's a figure in it, a really small figure, like in the background somewhere. But like it's such the actual picture itself was so low quality that like the person's blurred. So I also am like very mindful of what I use. And I think that when we had conversations about like how things find their way into our works, we had a conversation about like, when does something actually get used and how do we like manipulate it before it gets used? so that it's like what we actually want to communicate. Even if we, like, I think a lot about that picture of Maria's mom, like in the water, and like I can totally see the connection with the waterworks, but even with the connection with the colors, right? Like the color palette and things like that. But the figure doesn't have to be in it to still be like a sentimentality or like nostalgic or have a influence. So I think about that a lot. Even with like we talked about lighting with her installations, and I've been thinking about it in comparison to how I edit images before they go to print. So I'll shift colors in order to be more in line with like what I want the like mood to be, if you will, like the feeling. So sometimes I like lean into like the pinks mostly, or I'll like wash things out so that it's like less color in general. And I think that is like a really interesting way that both of us work, is like, how do we actually manipulate it for the audience to experience it? They're like in very, like one is like in the process and the other one is like in the actual installation.
Absolutely. It was one of the things that brought us to bring you together, in the sense that there was, you know, Maria does things in 3 dimensions. She sets the stage. You record the movie of the stage in 2 dimensions, if that makes sense. I don't have a better way to put it, but you know, I sometimes see both of your practices as, you know, as the reflection of a mirror. You know, when sometimes you reflect something on the mirror and what is in your left is on your right and vice versa. So sometimes when we met with both of you individually, David and I got this sense of like not opposites, but reverse, in the sense that, you know, both of you have very similar research processes and interest in the found objects, but the way you express it are alternate, but they complement each other in so many different ways, you know, including the 2-dimensionality and 3-dimensionality. That is one of them. No, this is very, very incredible. I'm really looking forward to see how your work develops, and, you know, as we move forward, to see where you left off. The main point of the entire project. But yeah, how, I am just really curious to know if you know at this stage, as you said before, this is very early on still, is there something specific that now you are planning on developing on your work after this series of conversations? Is there any aspect that you're like, okay, I think I want to focus on working on this, or this has caught my attention, I wanna dig further into this aspect or this aspect?
I think right now, like what we kind of decided on, and the more I think about it, seems more natural for us. We've been like trying to email back and forth, like images or like what we're working on in the studio or researching, which the more that I've like looked at both of our studio practice, or the more we've talked, is like, that seems like such a important part of our process, is like just processing things before we actually make something. So the more I think about it, the more that seems like a very very like natural way for us to progress. I don't know, does that make sense, Maria? Am I wrong?
No, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, it's just like we're in this flow of just exchanging whatever we want to share with each other, image wise or video wise, and it just feels good for me. And then I think it will eventually get to a point where maybe we can discuss what's the next step.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of where we've landed, is like, just let it be our natural like instinct to collect and sit on things or look at things and then be like, oh, okay, all right, what's next? Like, so I think that's like allowing it to move at its own pace kind of thing it's what we've found might work for us.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have like an end goal, but I think that's how we work.
Oh, you don't need to have
what I'm
it.
getting to. Yeah.
If there is something that everyone should know about this project is that its primary focus is the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, ideally we will bring every single set of eyes inside every single, artist studio so they will actually see it, but that's absolutely impossible. So yeah, it's about opening up to your process. So this is perfect. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. It is very, very generous from both of you. And yes, by the way, everyone needs to know that they have been introduced out of nowhere. So incredible collaboration so far. Sorry, David. And we lost him.
No, sorry.
There you go.
Oh, sorry. My connection, but I just wanted to compliment maybe what you said and just like being very excited about what I heard today and what we've been hearing for the past few weeks. That I can see a number of touching points between both your works. I think one of them, like being color, of course, it's very obvious and it's very present, but also I think translucent materials, transparency, and the way that you think about laying present by like it false concept of compulsion for collecting, and then the idea of staging. I think they're going to be very important in thinking about like how your collaboration might unfold in the future, and how easily it could overlap and even like become like one practice for like experimental means, or like how your works could like be confounded like in one work, or like collaborate to create that layering in different ways. So I really look forward to see what that's going
to. Me too. Okay, on that note, I think this is the moment of wrapping up. So I will thank again these two incredible minds. Thank you for being a part of the project. Again, we will keep everyone posted as of the progresses of the collection of objects, if I may call them that way at this point. And we will try to give everyone a sneak peek of what this is, how they look like, and how they move along. But yeah, thank you so much to both of you. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.